Coming up, President Trump calls out Maine Governor. DOGE checks questions about the IRS. Stephen Miller gives a civics lesson. Kash Patel's first speech after confirmation. And Vance speaks to young men. President Trump calls out Maine Governor Janet Mills.
The NCAA has complied immediately, by the way. That's good. But I understand Maine. Is Maine here, the governor of Maine? Well, are you not going to comply with it?
I'm complying with state and federal laws.
We are the federal law. Well, you better do it. You better do it because you're not going to get any federal funding at all if you don't. And by the way, your population, even though it's somewhat liberal, although I did very well there, your population doesn't want men playing in women's sports. So you better comply because otherwise you're not getting any federal funding.
See you in court.
Every state, good. I'll see you in court. I look forward to that. That should be a real easy one. And enjoy your life after governor because I don't think you'll be in elected politics.
This was hilarious. Trump was talking about getting transgender people out of women's and girls' sports. Governor Janet Mills doesn't seem that keen on getting males out of female sports. The exchange between her and Trump got, let's say, a bit heated, and the governor didn't like the threat to federal funding of her state. As seems to be situation normal with the Democrats these days, the threat of lawfare was pretty much the first card pulled from the deck. Trump was unfazed and said that he looked forward to it. I look forward to it as well. I'll make sure to put my popcorn order in. Then we go to Elon Musk on DOGE checks.
Let's talk about these DOGE dividend checks that everybody's talking about this week. And I know you tweeted out that you're going to... Does everybody want like a $5,000 check in the mail? It sounds kind of good, right? And the best part about it would be knowing where it came from. That's $5,000 that you sent them last year.
Totally. It's money that's taken away from things that are destructive to the country and from organizations that hate you to you. That's awesome.
Does it seem, have you talked to
that's
the
like
president?
glorious. That's like
It's the best.
the spoils of battle, you know?
Spoils of battle. I like that. Is there traction on that?
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
I talked to the president, and he's supportive of that. And so it sounds like, that's something we're going to do.
Yep.
The subject of $5,000 DOGE checks was discussed. It appears that part of the dividend for the savings found by DOGE will be going back to the taxpayers, as this money is, after all, money that taxpayers have paid for the waste, fraud and abuse. Trump likes it as well, so it appears that it is a go. But not everyone likes the idea. You have the obligatory naysayers from the Democrats, whose ability to say a joyful yes seems to be incredibly muted these days. If you enjoy this content, please like, share and subscribe. Now, in terms of muted response, take Representative Jasmine Crockett.
President Trump says he likes the idea of giving some of the savings from DOGE back to Americans as kind of a dividend. Would you support that?
Listen, he's just telling a lie. He's not the one that had anything to do with the $1,200 refunds that people had during the midst of COVID. That was done by a Democratic House and Democratic Senate. Right now, what they're going to do is say, hey, we want to give you a refund, but Congress won't let us because they already know that there's just no money for that.
Now, what the hell a $1,200 check 5 odd years ago has to do with a DOGE check today is way beyond me. But in their convoluted thinking, the Democrats use all sorts of ridiculous reasoning. Where will the money come from, Crockett asks. Hasn't Crockett read the memo, as this is the purpose of DOGE? After all, they're finding waste, fraud and abuse. And there are a lot of associated savings to the taxpayer from this. But the corrupt Democrats want the waste, fraud and abuse to continue. Taxpayer be damned. Thinking of saving money, we have Kevin Hassett Trump's chief economic advisor.
This would be for either one of you. So we reported, several other outlets have reported that about 3,500 people are due to be lose their jobs at the IRS by the end of the week. If the goal of these spending cuts across the federal government has been to reduce the debt, why impose some of the deepest cuts we've seen so far at the agency responsible for raising revenue for the federal government?
Well, I think our objective is to make sure that the employees that we pay are being productive and effective. And there are many, more than 100,000 people working to collect taxes, and not all of them are fully occupied. And the Treasury Secretary is studying the matter and feels like 3,500 is a small number, and probably can get bigger, especially as we improve the IT at the IRS. And so I think that it's absolutely something that is on the table for good reasons. And the point is that don't just talk about the IRS, talk about all of government. That there are so many places. I live in D.C. You maybe live in D.C. where nobody's going to the buildings. People aren't commuting because nobody's doing their job. We look back and we see that there are all these people doing two jobs while they're getting a government payroll on the payroll. So the point is we're fixing that, and the IRS is a small part of that picture.
The media seems to be utterly fixated on the actual number of people working in an organisation or department. The reality is they should be looking at the productivity and output of said organisation or department. Being the left, though, they would be quite happy to see work that could be done by, say, 10 people employing 1,000 people doing that same work. They have no concept of efficiency and fundamentally do not understand money or the generation of wealth. Hassett is absolutely correct. Efficiency will benefit all Americans. Then we have Stephen Moore giving the media a much needed education on civics.
And it says the executive power shall be vested in a president, singular. The whole will of democracy is imbued into the elected president. That president then appoints staff to then impose that democratic will onto the government. The threat to democracy, indeed the existential threat to democracy, is the unelected bureaucracy of lifetime tenured civil servants who believe they answer to no one, who believe they can do whatever they want without consequence, who believe they can set their own agenda no matter what Americans vote for. So Americans vote for radical FBI reform, and FBI agents say they don't want to change. Or Americans vote for radical reform on our energy policies, but EPA bureaucrats say they don't want to change. Or Americans vote to end DEI, racist DEI policies, and lawyers of the Department of Justice say they don't want to change. What President Trump is doing is he is removing federal bureaucrats who are defying democracy by failing to implement his lawful orders, which are the will of the whole American people.
The Democrats complain about unelected officials impacting policy. Of course, they're not talking about their own pet bureaucrats. They're talking about Elon Musk and DOGE. Miller points out that the president is elected by all Americans. In fact, he is the only person to be elected by all Americans and therefore has a mandate to carry out his agenda. The Democrats believe that bureaucrats are entirely within their rights to block the president's agenda because, of course, the majority of bureaucrats are Democrats. Funny how those two rhyme. The reality is that if the bureaucrats defy the will of their boss, the president, then he is entirely within his rights to fire them. This probably went right over the heads of the media. Then Dana Loesch talks about what the Democrats have become and how they became what they are.
David Axelrod was part of this. I mean, he was part of the Obama administration. They guided that administration into setting the stage for what Democrats have become today. So it's incredibly rich for a lot of these people to make these remarks now because they're safe, right? It doesn't cost them anything to do it now. And I can't believe I'm saying this, but I'll give credit where due. I honestly think that James Carville was the only one who was trying to send a wake-up call to these people, but they didn't pay attention to him because the party, Democrats, they allowed the people that they used as their agitators for get out the vote. They enshrined them within the Democrat Party and adopted all of their insanity as part of their platform. So if they're looking where all their Democrat voters are culturally or at the ballot box, they left.
Loesch talks about the Obama administration and how people like David Axelrod, who was part of the Obama administration, are now coming out and prognosticating in an apparently wise manner on where the Democrat voters are. The problem is, it is Obama, Axelrod, and others like that that have built the Democratic Party in the image that they wanted, and wonder why the American people have just not supported their ideological travels into Looney Tunes land. The reality is Americans have had it with all this nonsense. The reality is that the Clinton administration was probably the last Democrat administration that was in any way competent. Then we have CBS questioning why Musk is involved in improving the FAA and air traffic control system.
He sought the help of Elon Musk, who founded the aerospace company SpaceX and whose team toured the FAA's command center outside Washington this week.
Why wouldn't I ask Elon Musk? Why wouldn't I ask some of the best minds in the world to come in and offer us advice on how they think we can improve the system?
How do you avoid the potential conflicts of interest with Elon Musk?
I don't want to see conflicts of interest. So he was talking to air traffic controllers, didn't plug into the system, but looked at the terminals that they use, the technology that they use, asked them, had a back and forth about what works well for you, what doesn't work well.
For some reason, CBS finds it strange that Musk is getting involved. This is a very weird way to look at it. Musk has proved that he is an extremely innovative thinker. Why wouldn't you want someone like that examining how to improve a system architecture to benefit everyone? For so many on the left, it is more important who is doing what than what they are doing. This is the difference between people who are process-driven as opposed to people who are results-driven. Then we have the recently sworn-in director for the FBI, Kash Patel.
Our national security mission is equally as important. Anyone that wishes to do harm to our way of life and our citizens here or abroad will face the full wrath of the Department of Justice and the Federal Bureau of Investigation. And if you seek to hide in any corner of this country or any corner of this planet, we will put on the world's largest manhunt and we will find you. And we will decide your end state, not you. We will uphold the Constitution. We will uphold ourselves to the Constitution.
In a very strong statement, Patel has a very powerful message to those who would do America harm. It is basically, don't think you can evade us. If you do us harm, we will chase you to the ends of the earth and beyond. So good to have a tough FBI director as opposed to the lily-livered bureaucrats that have infested the role of FBI director of late. Then we have J.D. Vance on what it is to be a man.
I think that our culture sends a message to young men that you should suppress every masculine urge. You should try to cast aside your family. You should try to suppress what makes you a young man in the first place. And I think that my message to young men is don't allow this broken culture to send you a message that you're a bad person because you're a man, because you like to tell a joke, because you like to have a beer with your friends, or because you're competitive. It's... Our message, the cultural message, and I think the president's and mine is the exact opposite, but our cultural message is, I think that it wants to turn everybody, whether male or female, into androgynous idiots who think the same, talk the same, and act the same. We actually think God made male and female for a purpose, and we want you guys to thrive as young men and as young women, and we're going to help with our public policy to make it possible to do that.
Vance has a very welcome message about not feeling guilty for being a male and for doing things that are traditionally associated with being a male. Instead of the Democrat idea of androgynous, dare I say, metrosexual men, Vance says that men should embrace their masculinity with pride, just as females should their femininity. What a welcome and, quite frankly, beyond time message. I personally am tired of the attempt to feminize men and society. Vive la différence, I say, and it appears that the Trump administration feels the same way. America is the land of the brave, not the land of the simpering. What do you think about Doge payments? Please let me know in the comments below, and thanks for watching.